I'm here today to do my review for the movie Bird Box, which was the Netflix adaptation of the novel by the same name. Book was by Josh Malorman. I don't know who produced and directed this. So in this book, the plot is largely the same. There's these creatures. There's something about them that when people look directly at them, it drives them absolutely insane, and they do these homicidal, suicidal rages that are just horrific. That being said, there was a lot of things that were changed in the movie to make the end goal seem a little bit more reasonable. And with that, I really don't know what else to say for summary, so I'll go right into my likes and dislikes. My first like is that I liked how the creatures were dealt with. They dealt with the creatures largely the same way they did in the book, but I just found it to be really, especially effective in the movie because the not seeing them, but seeing what changes they were causing, to me, really helped build tension in such a fascinating way. And I appreciated how much it left up to your imagination because I don't know about you guys, but my imagination of what's going on in the dark in the corner of your eye is way more terrifying than what they usually show you in a movie. My second like, I enjoyed that, unlike in the book, Mallory wasn't entirely alone after giving birth. I mean, it was something that really defined her character in the book, but having her have a companion up until they went down the river made it a lot more, it made her grief and fear feel a lot more palpable because it was so fresh. And I don't know that if they had kept that the same as in the book, that it would have had quite the same effect on screen. Then my third is similar to what I enjoyed in A Silent Place. I really enjoyed the way the creatures and the characters reacted and really allowed for a very natural feeling of fear and tension and release. It made the pacing of the movie feel really, really smooth because it was such a fluid change from fear to building tension to the release of that fear due to some direct action. And now, on to the dislikes. My first big negative was kind of who started in the house and who they had in the house, including having Mallory there from the beginning. I wasn't crazy about it because it felt like it really changed a lot of the dynamics between everybody in the house, and that was really unfortunate to me because I personally, even though they were pretty flat, really enjoyed the people in the book, how they reacted with each other, and how they built this little microcosm of a society. And it was a very, very different feel, and it never felt as united in the movie as it did in the book. So I wasn't super impressed with that and what it did to some of the character interactions. Building on this, I technically counted it as two separate negatives, but they're basically the same thing. My next negative is I disliked not just who started in the house, but how everybody got there. It ignored a lot of deep trauma that Mallory had because of her sister and how her sister actually died, and I don't really know how to explain it, but there's a lot of build-up in the book that set the tone and context for Mallory's character that we didn't get in the movie. And because we didn't get, so because they changed that, they changed a lot of other things in terms of how people got to the house they were staying in, and it just felt a lot more rushed than it did in the book. I know that it's basically the same thing as I didn't like who started in the house, but let me be picky, please. I just didn't care for it. My third negative in here is that the trip on the river, 20 miles feels like a longish time, which is what it was in the book. But then they're it's actually going to be 40 miles, and there's these terrifying rapids in them, which I don't remember being in the book. And so it was very, visceral on screen watching them go through those rapids. But it was so weird. I don't know. I didn't care for it. So now I'll jump into the characters real quick. Now they've got those negatives out of the way, even, and they're technically 3. So with the characters, I can't really say that I actively disliked them, because they were roughly pretty similar to the characters in the book. I just, as I already mentioned, I didn't like who started in the house and how they got there. I felt it changed up a lot of the character dynamics. So, and like my big complaint with the change in the character dynamics is because they didn't have this kind of united microcosm of society in the house like they had in the book, everything felt a lot more forced. Like, the interactions just didn't feel as natural or as progressive in terms of the story. I think they actually did a good job with the casting. I really, really loved how well the actors got into the characters. I'm a huge fan of John Malkovich. I'm a huge fan of Sandra Bullock. And I am now a huge fan of, I believe his name is Trevante Rhodes, the guy that played Tom. Oh dang, did I enjoy him. He was just cool and calm and collected like he was supposed to be in the story. I mean, they tweaked his character a little bit, but overall he did a fantastic job just bringing that character to life. And with that, I'll jump in, do a couple quick wrap-ups here. I hear my supper being prepared, so I really, really want to do this quick. So, in terms of a movie, how did I feel about it? I enjoyed it, but I'm definitely not watching it again. For me, this movie is about a 3 out of 5. The river set was gorgeous. The house was gorgeous, even if it wasn't completely accurate to what was in the book. I enjoyed a lot of how the movie was shot. They did a lot of really interesting cuts, and the way they filmed what was happening when the creatures were approaching, they did such a good job with the tension. Like, the cinematography just really, really helped convey that really creepy, fear-filled tone. And as I mentioned, the pacing was pretty good. A lot of it had to do with the way the tension would build and then break. It was very, very smooth in terms of that, and I really, really enjoyed that the movie didn't drag. Like I said, overall, really enjoyed the movie. Those are a few things that I hadn't already mentioned that really stuck out to me. With that, I'll move into my book-to-movie adaptation. Here I'm also giving a 3 out of 5, because even though the angle was the same and a lot of the characters were the same, how, like, the means to the end were so different that I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with all the changes they made to it. So, and while not all the changes were to the detriment, such as Mallory having a companion for those 5 years to help raise the kids, a lot of them really just didn't fill the same void that was left by, like, there's a few voids left by the changes made that just didn't really sit as well in terms of the storytelling for this. I guess the big thing is I miss Book Gary. Like, they have that character, sort of, but, like, in the book, he's so much more important and insidious to the unity of the house. And I guess part of it, too, is just that the house wasn't, like I said, that kind of, like, microcosm of society. So, like, his role wasn't as needed, but I missed the effects he had and how he played out. And that's really all I have to say here. If I missed anything, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to talk with you guys about this. I found it to be a really interesting adaptation, even if I didn't find it to be particularly accurate, hence the score. And with that, I will leave you here and see you in the next video. Peace.